Welcome back to my channel. I'm James, and today we're going to dive into a classic thriller horror movie that was written by Steven Spielberg and produced by him and directed by Tobe Hooper. So I'm excited to announce we're going to deep dive into Poltergeist on 4K Ultra HD, and this is from Warner Brothers, and we're going to be doing my exclusive image comparisons between this 4K Ultra HD release and the original 2008 Blu-ray. That's where I show you side by side the differences and if this is something worth spending your money on and upgrading to, or whether you should skip it and keep the original Blu-ray release. And that's something I always exclusively do here on my YouTube channel. So if you haven't done so already, make sure to go down, give this video a like and a thumbs up for me. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. That way you never miss out on any of this exclusive content that I release here on my YouTube channel. Now I'll be going through this and sharing with you all of my testing data, sharing with you my thoughts on Poltergeist, and then at the end I'll always wrap it up with my review score, which gives you a sum up of how this compares to all of the other hundreds upon hundreds of 4Ks I've tested and reviewed over the years here on my YouTube channel. Now to start off with here, we're going to show you the native image off of the 2008 Blu-ray. Now, I've talked about this before, but I'm going to mention it again because I always get a lot of questions about this. This is the native image off of those discs. So just like with the Blu-ray and the 4K when I get to it, these are the native images that are present on the discs without all the things you can try to do to pump up color saturation unnaturally. If your TV is not professionally calibrated, you can jack that color all the way up and it'll make people look like they're bleeding. That's not the actual way it's supposed to look. So these are always the native images pulled from the discs. Now, on the Blu-ray disc, the one thing that was present on it originally was it was a softer image. It really just had a softer overall appearance. The blacks were not great on it. Skin tones were slightly more in the yellowish range than what they should have been, and overall the color grading was not amazing. It was a decent Blu-ray release, but as I recently talked about on the Lost Boys review, and if you haven't checked out that review yet here on my YouTube channel, I did an exclusive 4K versus Blu-ray on that as well. When I talked about the Lost Boys from Warner Brothers, they did a drastic color grading that made a big difference. Well, in this one on the original Blu-ray, it desperately needed a new color grading because it did have just an odd color for some of their skin tones. Odd colors for like the whites were more yellowish throughout it. Well, in comparison to the 4K Ultra HD release, I am happy to report that it did get a nice new color grading. They went and scanned the original 35mm camera negatives to create this new native 4K Ultra HD presentation. So the nice thing is, because it's a native 4K, it's not upscaled from a 2K source, things like that. They actually went back and scanned the original camera negatives, which makes a big difference on this new 4K Ultra HD release. On this new 4K, it does have better film grain that's more present in it without it being overly heavy. This new 4K has a very nice filmic film grain look throughout it. The film grain on this is very stable throughout it. I didn't notice any massive fluctuations or really fluctuations much at all. Though I will point out on the front cover of this, it does talk about photosensitivity and the flashing and things like that. There was a review I did a long time ago which had bad flashing in a different way. It wasn't from the film, but it did have basically where the film grain would fluctuate so bad throughout it, and it would go from like a clear DNR'd scene to film grain being flashy to a clear DNR'd scene, which caused a real issue when watching. Well, on this release, because it's flashing coming from like the TV that was flickering when it was on and things like that, it's a different type of feeling, but it still can give you that same sense of photosensitivity. So in my case, because of my nerve damage and things like that that I've dealt with over the years, I did notice it, and there is some scenes where like when it is flashing, you kind of look away from the screen just if it starts to make you slightly nauseous from that. But it wasn't so bad as that previous release where that was just horrible. I mean, there were so many issues with that other one. But anyhow, getting back to this one, the movie itself though, the image looks really good. The actual film grain on it looks really good and stable throughout without it being so basically heavy that it caused clumping or blocking. And over that 2008 Blu-ray, the new color grading makes their flesh and skin tones look so much more natural and lifelike and brought life to the film that I never ever thought would be present for Poltergeist. And I really do think this is one of those 80s films that so much harkens to Steven Spielberg's feel. Even though Tobe Hooper directed it, Steven Spielberg, because he wrote it and produced it, you can sense his fingerprints all over it. And I think that's what added so greatly to the sense of why this is such a great classic, like thriller, mystery, haunted house movie. And it is one of those, some people say it's a sci-fi haunted house, however you want to look at it. It is basically, you're trying to figure out what's going on with a sci-fi thriller mystery story behind it. Set in that 80s suburban world that really has some great acting and great storylines behind it. Now this is presented in a native 4K 2160p with HDR10. And the HDR10 looks really good on it. The HDR10 presentation has great contrast and light to dark balance with brilliant whites and very inky blacks with no black crush. So just like I talked about with that Lost Boys review, Warner Brothers did a great job without venturing into the black crush area. You can still see in those areas, but the areas that were like kind of a, I don't know, slightly grayish black on what you had on the 2008 Blu-ray, now those areas are inky black and look outstanding in those black areas. And the whites, man, they're so vibrant white. Instead of kind of being like that, I said, slightly yellowish tinged whites that you had on the 2008 Blu-ray, those are completely gone with that new color grading. And now the whites are actually white. And it just makes the film look like it's a whole brand new experience that I didn't expect to get from this new 4K Ultra HD. But I'm so happy that they spent the time and love and care to provide us this brand new look for Poltergeist that really looks so much better than that previous 2008 Blu-ray. Now I'm happy to announce it is in the original aspect ratio of 2.39:1. They didn't change it or cut it down at all. It is rated PG, though nowadays it would more likely be rated PG-13, though it's not too heavy. I mean, there's really not much language. There's not much violence. It's just kind of one of those things, because it's slightly scary, it would have been in the PG-13 realm, because it's dealing with kind of like things in the afterlife, death and life, and kind of how we look at things, but kind of done in a more like, I don't know, sci-fi element way, not in a realistic way. I mean, some of the special effects are kind of like gimmicky in a sense, but I enjoy it because it kind of added to the nostalgia factor of the film and never really took away from it, because I've always watched these films from the 80s. So to me, they always hold up just because that's the way the film looked, and I wouldn't want them redone because that's kind of the charm of what they did for the film. Runtime's pretty fast paced. It's 114 minutes, so it never lingers too long on anything, but it really is just one of those like just really entertaining haunted house movies where you're trying to figure out what's going on and what's the story behind it and why is it their house is haunted. And it just, if you haven't seen it yet, it really does give you one of those great classic Steven Spielberg feels for a film. Now, audio-wise for Poltergeist, there is some exciting news in that realm. We do get a new remastered DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 mix and the original theatrical 2.0 mix. They're both included on this, though I will say the newly remastered DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 was remastered from the original audio elements and has a much more dynamic range, crispness, and clarity over the previous 2008 audio mix. And it is a nice improvement. That the audio mix was a nice substantial upgrade, that it just sounded a lot better both in range and depth in that audio mix, both when they're talking and the background like sound effects. You could just hear a whole lot better on this new 4K release than you could on the previous Blu-ray release. Now this does contain 5 other languages and audio options for different languages, Spanish, Italian, German, things like that as well. Now subtitle wise, this does have English, French, Spanish, plus 8 more subtitle options, so that basically whatever subtitle option you're kind of looking for, it's got most of them on this that are available. Now, if after you get done watching this review, you decide you want to pick up Poltergeist on 4K Ultra HD or the original Blu-ray release, I always had them listed down in the description section and as a pinned comment in the comment section below. When you click on those links, it takes you straight out to Amazon, and that's at no extra charge to you. It doesn't cost you anything extra by clicking on those links, but it does help to support this YouTube channel just a tiny bit. It takes you straight out to Amazon, and it's at the same sale price as everywhere. So if you do decide you're wanting to pick up any of these releases after you get done watching my review, make sure to go down to either the description section right below this video or the pinned comment in the comment section below. I'll have those Amazon links listed out right down there for you. I've made it nice and easy for you. Now talking about this release, again, just like Lost Boys, it does have this really nice like slipcover, though I really dislike the artwork on this. I'd actually say this is my least favorite artwork I've seen on a 4K Ultra HD in a long time. I really feel like the explosion of light coming out behind Poltergeist with the character standing in the front lawn just isn't great. I just really think it's an overall poor artwork choice, but I like the metallic slipcovers. So again, this is another one of those instances where basically Warner Brothers will print this with the slipcover for a while, then they'll go out of print as far as slipcover goes, and then they will just be the actual case that's underneath. So keep that in mind. If you are a slipcover collector and you like these, don't wait too long to get it. That is one of those things that they do stop printing after a while. Now, as I did touch on, it does have this warning sticker on here, which I do appreciate because it is one of those films that if you do have photosensitivity and flashing really bad does affect you or make you nauseous, this film does have a lot of those like really heavy flashing scenes where it really is flashing a lot. So keep that in mind. It does affect you a little bit. Myself, it did affect me a little bit. It did make me just slightly nauseous in some scenes. I had to look away just in some of those flashing, but it isn't one of those things that it's so horrible that you can't watch the film. But to each their own, it depends on how that affects you. Getting the side here, it does say Poltergeist with Warner Brothers logo. Talks about it here. Now you do get a Movies Anywhere digital copy code in this as well that you can redeem. It does redeem in 4K. It does contain a few special features. These are the exact same special features that were contained on the 2008 Blu-ray, so it's not like you're missing anything, but there's nothing really super grand. There's only a few contained. I would have liked for them to add some new special features, bring some more things in. I mean, kind of like I talked about in Lost Boys, there was a ton of special features contained in that, whereas Poltergeist, there's really just not a whole lot that has existed on any of the releases. And like I said, this is the inside you get. This is what it'll look like after the slipcovers aren't available anymore. And then when you get inside, kind of surprising, but there's a big warning telling you the same thing, that this film contains sequences of flashing lights and other visual elements that may cause dizziness or discomfort or trigger seizures in people with photosensitive epilepsy or other photosensitivities. Seizures can occur in people without a prior diagnosis of epilepsy. So keep that in mind, just like in my case, you could have something like nerve damage or something like that that can cause those kind of like just nausea or seizures or things like that. So they did put that in there, which I do like that they did include that so that way people knew about it. This is your 4K Ultra HD release disc, and I will say this one is region free, though it is on a BD66. As always, I exclusively test them in all of my players, my region A, B, C, multi-region, and region free. And the 4K is region free on this. On your Blu-ray, you do get the new 4K scan, obviously dumbed down to 1080p, so they didn't throw in that old 2008 Blu-ray. I am happy to announce, even if you don't have 4K yet and you're wanting to collect these, so that way when you upgrade, this does future-proof you because this does have the new scan on the Blu-ray that you get to enjoy with the new color grading. So the nice thing is Warner Brothers doing a good job there. This is a BD50 and I did test it. It is 100% region-free as well. So again, any of you worldwide that are wanting to import or buy this, that link I posted from Amazon in the description section and as a pinned comment, that ships worldwide. And this set is completely region free, so you'll have access to both the Blu-ray and the 4K. Now talking about this release as far as what you get and the value in it, because they gave you that Blu-ray in it that is the new scan, I really think that's a nice thing that they didn't give us and just throw in that previous 2008 Blu-ray, because that new scan and the new color grading does make this film look the best it ever has before. And having it on Blu-ray, for those of you that don't have 4K yet, is a big benefit because you don't have to buy this twice. You can buy this set that has the 4K and the Blu-ray in it, and then you'll be able to watch the 4K once you do upgrade because your Blu-ray, you're already getting the new scan to enjoy in this. So that's a really nice thing, kind of like they did with the Star Trek. You know, if you haven't checked out those reviews, I did those here on this YouTube channel. Those releases, they did a great job giving us the new scans of the Blu-rays in those sets as well. So again, it seems like companies and studios are really listening to those of us that collect and love these films by not kind of shortchanging us and making us buy a separate Blu-ray if you want a Blu-ray and then a 4K later on. It is nice that Warner Brothers thought of us in that sense and gave us both. Talking about the film grain on this, the film grain on this was very filmic and stable throughout it. I didn't have any heavy fluctuations except for those flashing scenes. Now, here's where it's difficult. I watched them anyways because I always have watched through it anyways to make sure what I'm seeing so I can report on it, but it does in those flashing scenes, the film grain, you do notice through those flashing scenes, slightly more heavy, but that's because the scene is flashing, so it's going really bright white. So it's kind of one of those things that I just think it's inherent to what it is. So I don't really look at that on a negative side for this film, because that's because how it was filmed on film stock, not something they did wrong with this restoration and remaster. So keep that in mind. That doesn't affect the review score because that was intentional. That was the way it was intentionally filmed, not something that was done wrong, like what I've reported on some previous 4K releases that I've reviewed, where it was done incorrectly, which caused flashing or flickering in the film grain heavily. This is actually just present because the scene flickers so bright, dark, that you kind of notice the film grain in those scenes slightly differently. That's not incorrect. That is the way it was intended. Because of the original way it was filmed on the original camera negatives, that's intentional. That's not done incorrectly. So throughout the entire film, the film grain does look good. It's very stable throughout it. I really thought it was just the best looking for the film grain, especially because on the 2008 Blu-ray, you couldn't see the film grain nearly as much. It just had a very soft appearance on that Blu-ray that now is gone, and the image is very detailed. Though keep in mind the edges of the image, because it was kind of filmed with almost like a fish-like lens, kind of around the corners and edges of each of your film. That's the area where it's not as detailed because of how they filmed it with the lenses they were using. Most of your detail is the center circle of the image. So keep that in mind. That's intentional because of the way it was filmed. That's not, no matter how many times they remaster and restore, those basically four corners of your screen, the little corners of it, they're always going to look that way. It's basically the center image of what the most detail and clarity is for Poltergeist, because that's the way it was intentionally filmed. Now, because of how good the HDR10 presentation is with the lights to darks, really just overall that color grading looking on this, my review score for Poltergeist on 4K Ultra HD is a very impressive 9.5. This is another one. It is a must-buy. Highly recommended that you pick this up and add this to your collection, especially if you like horror, thriller, mystery. Some people say it has slightly a sci-fi twist to it. However you want to look at it. If you like those Spielbergian era films that give you that really feel of like, I mean, this film really gave me a lot of like the E.T. vibes. Not that it was about an alien specifically, but just the overall vibe of the film itself. Really, Poltergeist does a great job in that sense of it, without it being too graphic or violent or cursing, and it's just a fun ride. It's one of those films you'll sit back, and if you've never seen it before, you'll enjoy the film. But it's a very impressive, very strong review score of a 9.5. This is one to add to your collection. I do recommend, if you want to see it in the best quality it's ever been released on, this 4K Ultra HD is the absolute best release of Poltergeist that's ever come out so far. And I think it's going to be very, very hard to beat this, because over that Blu-ray before, you see such a big improvement in the image that I really don't know what areas they could really add anything to make this look better, because it's a native 4K anyway. So I really do feel like this is the ultimate version that we're going to get of Poltergeist. And for that, I'm very happy that Warner Brothers did the work they did, spent the time and the money to make this look the best it's ever looked. So 9.5, this is a must-buy. Let me know how excited you are for this release of Poltergeist now that you've seen my exclusive image comparison showing you the native image that's present on these discs. Let me know if this is something you're going to be upgrading and buying. If you do decide you're going to pick this up, make sure to click through those links down in the description section or as a pinned comment below. As I said, those take you straight out to Amazon at no extra cost to you. It does help support this YouTube channel just a tiny bit, and it's on sale for the same price everywhere. So when you click on those, it'll ship anywhere worldwide. If you enjoy all the hard work and time I put into all of these reviews and all of this exclusive content I provide here on my YouTube channel, as always, I've said I'm not supported by anybody other than you, my viewers and subscribers. So make sure to join my VIP Collectors Club. That is the absolute best way to support this YouTube channel and to support the creation of all of these videos. I can't do this without all of your support. So please make sure to join my VIP Collectors Club. It costs you less than the price of a cup of coffee each month, but it makes the world of difference for my YouTube channel and the creation of these videos. That's how I can constantly spend all of this time using all the software and all the time to pull all the data off of these to create all of these videos for all of you to watch. So make sure to join my VIP Collectors Club or give a super thanks to the super thanks button down below. That goes straight back into this YouTube channel, and all of that money really makes a world of difference. Even a couple of dollars by joining that VIP club makes a drastic difference. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and a like for me. hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. I hope all of you really enjoyed the extra hard work and time I put in this week. I wanted to provide both The Lost Boys and Poltergeist to all of you. I did all of this for all of you, and I'm trying to provide this content as fast as possible as I can to all of you, but please be understanding that I'm doing a lot of work through a lot of pain in dealing with this so that I can provide this for all of you. As always, I hope all of you have a blessed day, and as always, I'll have something new and exciting coming out very soon.